starting the broadcast. The broadcast has started. Cool. So took 2 weeks off between book clubs. Thanks for making it the book club, people. Appreciate it. And I think we're going to have a few people that are going to be dialing in through the Google Hangout. I think Join Me actually just released the video version of Join Me, so maybe I'll try next week on Join Me. Problem is you know, YouTube video type stuff, but we'll figure out a way that we might be able to share it otherwise. I went to a baseball game on Sunday. Went to a baseball game on Sunday, and we took the kids to the baseball game on Sunday, and anybody take their kids to like to see the Diamondbacks and stuff like that?
Did you go on Sunday?
I did go on Sunday.
Okay.
And what's cool is they have like their value menu, right? And so they got like normal prices, so they can get like a kid's hot dog for like $1.50 and like a kid's soda for like $1. And they had value beer, right? It said $4 beers. I was like, wow, $4 beers at the ballpark. That's pretty awesome. I haven't seen that since like Veterans Stadium, 1990, right? and so I was pretty excited because I was getting cotton candy and for like $6 and a beer for $4. So I came up there with my $10 bill and I said, "Can we get the cotton candy and I can have one of your value beers?" And a woman turns around and goes and pours the beer and comes back. And that's the value beer. This is exactly what it was. And it was Coors Light too, right? So they opened up like 2 Coors Light cans. The 1 Coors Light can equaled 2 value beers. That's pretty much what it was. So
$8 for a beer.
Right back to $8 for a beer. Right back to $8 for a beer. So I realized that.
You didn't really expect value.
Yeah, I didn't realize that value was synonymous with small. So I now tell people that I'm a great value.
It's better than saying it's a kid-sized beer.
It's a kid-sized beer. Yes, it's kid-size. Yeah, that works in Wisconsin. I don't know if it flies in Arizona. Cool. Before we get started on the book, though, I wanted to kind of open up the conversation about some of the emails that Darren has been sending out and to get everybody's kind of thoughts on those. Has everybody been reading the emails that Darren's been sending out on the mornings? He started out, I think, on Monday, where it said, "Why do we exist?" And then Tuesday, "Who are we?" And then Wednesday, "Where are we going?" Have you guys read those?
Those are the existential emails.
The existential emails? Yeah.
I think that's a good way to start the day.
Where are we?
Go ahead and start the day.
Exactly.
Why are we here?
Where we really belong. Yeah.
Yeah, so that first one just kind of teed up, I think, the rest of the ones that I believe, this is a whole series of things. We're going on a journey, right? And we've gone past 2 mileposts. We've gone past milepost, "Who are we?" And we've gone past milepost, "Where are we going?" And we still have, "How do we get there?" and "What is the reward?" Right? So I'd like to kind of hear your thoughts on maybe some of the stuff that Darren's been writing in those emails. First one about who are we? Talked about our early days mission statement, and our mission being become the global leader in healthcare cloud computing and information security by reducing costs and improving reliability, security, and efficiency to make healthcare smarter, safer, and better. So, and I think he kind of teased out that we're going to be rolling out shortly along with a new set of values and a new improved mission statement. But I want to ask you guys, if you guys were able to write a mission statement for this company, and you're to kind of don't have to come up with a mission statement because it feels like you got to get up and say a speech. But a lot of times mission statements or vision statements are built around beacon words, right? And the idea of a beacon word being, a 1 word or 2 words that kind of encapsulate what it is you want to do. So, things like, I don't know, I'll give it to you guys. What would be good beacon words for ClearDATA that then we can start to build a mission and a vision around? Things that you've heard those 2 words together says, if I get these 2 words together, that's encapsulates what ClearDATA is all about.
Betterment, consolidation, improvement,
And they're kind of like big,
bigger.
like long horizon words, right? Like, so at hosting, the beacon words were serve and guide. Those are the 2 beacon words that they wanted to do. Is they wanted to guide customers to the cloud, and they wanted to give them excellent service in getting there. Right? So serve and guide is the beacon words that they used. Better healthcare technology. Interesting one.
Oh, secure.
Secure.
I
Go ahead.
would say evangelize.
Evangelize.
Part of it is we don't understand. Well, 52 is typically 10 to 15 years behind
Mm-hmm.
in forward thought. Part of it's just kind of being evangelize.
I like
Provide,
evangelize.
educate, secure.
I'm trying to think about two that you could put together, right?
Fix it.
I was working on a process.
Oh, you're going
Those two. Fix it.
fix it, fix it, fix it. Beacon word to fix it. I like that one. I like where you kind of evangelize, but I also like forward, right? Because we're trying to bring healthcare forward. I thought forward was a good one. And I was thinking about this. I thought simple, right? Trying to make the cloud simple for healthcare to consume and simple for healthcare to operate on.
Simplify.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be what we are today, but always the vision is always where you're striving towards, right? And getting back to our mission today, it's a long one. Global leader, healthcare cloud computing, information security by reducing costs and improving reliability, security, and efficiency to make healthcare smarter, safer, and better. And one of the things that I think prevents healthcare from getting onto the cloud in a lot of cases is that it's so daunting to them. It's so complex to them. It just seems like soul crushing to think I got to move my stuff to the cloud, right? And I think Bob talking about evangelizing the cloud makes a ton of sense. And then they asked, well, how did I get there? I thought, it's simple. We could build a way to get people to the cloud simply. That would be an interesting beacon word to try to build a vision around. I don't know. That was my thoughts. Anybody else got any thoughts? Everybody just shaking. You guys like simple? We'll go with simple. Simple and evangelize. Simple and preaching. Amen.
Simple evangelical. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Simple and safe.
Process. Simple and safe.
Yeah, that's the other thing that scares,
Secure,
right? Simple and secure, which Simply Secure is the alarm system I use for my house, actually.
Simple and secure.
Yeah.
It's pretty powerful.
Yep.
Simple and secure.
Yeah.
That's two big fears that our customer base and prospect base possess right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
File's not secure. Physical documents I can secure.
Right. You think you can?
If it's in my data, if it's in my building, I can secure it.
Excuse me while I fill my value bill.
Sure.
Value bill. See, two, exactly two, right? $8. Yeah,
Still
simple.
a little bit of that value on the table.
Yes,
Wasted.
yes. That's one for my homies. All right, cool. All right, we'll jump into the book now. All right.
Wow.
Phase 2, catch and release and finding fragile artifacts projects, right? So one of the things I really like about this book is they try to make it simple, right? This is an idea too, is, ITIL, daunting, oh my God, we're never gonna get there. And this book talked about in the very beginning, practical steps, what does it say? Yeah, implementing ITIL in 4 practical and auditable steps, right? And so they kind of think about each of these phases as projects. The last project we talked about change management, right? Electrify the fence was the kind of the theme of the first phase, right? Stabilize the patient, modify first response, because it goes around electrifying the fence and really drives around change management, and that becomes the basis by which you can kind of get everything else accomplished. And this goes into this catch and release and find fragile artifacts project. In this second phase, Visible Ops focused on creating and maintaining an inventory of production assets. But what's it talk about in terms of the challenges of getting to that state, right? Where do you end up where you say, oh my God, I got all the stuff, I don't know what half it is, and I don't know what the other half does. How many folks have worked in organizations like that where you've got systems and computers and servers and there isn't any place to go to figure out what any of this does, and when something breaks, the first question you're not only asking is, what changed? Is you're asking, well, what was that? Right? And the idea here is to do a catch and release, to capture all that information so that you can start asking the question, what changed on what, and what's the function of that machine? Talk about some of the issues that they kind of start in just right there on page 45 for those playing along at home. What are some of the issues that come up in terms of basically starting to build out the catch and release phase, which is basically a catchy way of saying CMDB, right? Your configuration item management database. Anybody? First problem is just where to start, right? We talked about it being daunting. It's just like, oh my God, I got thousands and thousands of systems on laptops and phones and stuff like that. Where do I even start, right? That's the first problem that people run into. No idea where to start. It's just daunting, so I'm not gonna, right? Next one is that inability to start moving from individual knowledge to tribal or tribal knowledge, right? Basically, there's a few people that have been around for a long time that know everything, and everybody's got to go to them to figure out what it was. So I can tell you that was the case when we first got here, right? When I got here last year, I had to go to Will to ask everything, where everything was, and the CMDB existed in his head, and pretty much maybe a few other folks' heads, and nowhere else. I think we made long strides since then, but I can't say that, hey, there's a system that I can walk into and basically pull up a server and tell you exactly what that system is. Right?
I still ask Alan historical questions.
Mm-hmm.
The months.
Yeah, Alan was the other one that knew where everything was.
You know, one of the things Aaron wants us to do is inventory the assets.
Mm-hmm.
And not necessarily maybe systems, but actually physically inventory the assets, so that we can know their age, identify when the lease is up, and do we want to then buy out the lease, or is the thing old enough that we simply want to ditch it and get the new state-of-the-art replacement?
Mm-hmm.
And what I've always found with IT items is that you buy it in pieces. You find cables and widgets and memories, and they all come with maybe a million little invoices, but then it gets all put together in this one unit.
Right. Yeah, well, it's kind of like trying to depreciate your car based off of the age of the tires, right? Nobody does that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to kind of consider the sum of the parts, I think, in a lot of those cases. And we ran into that as well, previous organization, right? We were tracking things down to the stick of memory, right? And that just wages lied madness.
With a literal physical sticker on the CPUs. Yes.
Mm. Nothing like putting a piece of paper with some gummy stuff onto something that gets to about 200 degrees. Yeah.
Smart.
It would come right off.
Yes. Yes. Little goof off, got that residue right off there after it burned up. But no, and then we actually talk about this. The very next page is about, hey, when you start doing an inventory project, you know exactly how to go about doing it. And the first step is saying, don't put junior people in charge of it, right? And it basically solves that second problem about moving from tribal knowledge to, documented or individual knowledge. Is if you put the junior folks on it, you think, put the junior folks on it, they'll learn, right? And what you're doing is you're just passing down the tribal knowledge. What you end up doing is you take the senior people and put them onto the inventory project. So now they're forced to document. So the people that know it can actually get it done faster, which is another problem. And I don't think it says here, but another issue that probably isn't articulated here in the book, but I would definitely add to it in the next version of this is one of the things that you need to do in terms of doing a catch and release is everything needs to stop. All right. So if we say, hey, we're going to start an inventory project, we're going to capture every configured item, but for us to be able to do it effectively, that means we have to do a change freeze. So no more changes, no more server deployments, no more adding or removing from the environment. Everything stops. But how long can this business function if we were to do that? How long would our customers give us in terms of saying, hey, you know what? I know you really need the server, but we're kind of counting stuff right now.
Better be able to do it in 6 hours.
Yes, right. You got to do it fast, right? And if you try to give it to the junior team, you try to give it to the JV, as opposed to the folks that have the tribal knowledge, and also the folks that probably feel the pain and also recognize they can get this done faster, get it done more efficiently, and pass on and document their tribal knowledge. You solve so many of the issues in terms of trying to do a catch and release project with just kind of picking the right people to do the job.
This is kind of an example of that in a different industry. Before I joined this industry, I worked for a German manufacturer that manufactured swing handles for server cabinets and hinges and all that kind of stuff. And so we had to inventory our warehouse, and they did it once a year until I came on board. And it took them usually a week, sometimes longer. And our CEO literally had everybody on the floor counting, meaning everybody. And so he hired me as his director of operations. I came in and I said, all right, we're going to do this quarterly. Instantly, people, I had people in my office in tears because they're like, you don't understand. It took a whole week. I had to give up 2 weekends in a row. We couldn't service our customers. Everything ground to a halt. He had me out on the floor. I go, I got a plan. I've done this before. So we did exactly what you said. We got the people who actually knew what the items were and who dealt with them every day, and they were responsible for it. And we got to the point where the first time it took us 2 days. By the time I left that company, they were inventorying everything within
I was asking you.
6 hours.
Oh,
So we took the people who had the vested interest, like you said, the people who knew it, and then we documented everything, like he said, and it became like no big deal. But there were people literally crying tears in my office saying, we can't do this again. It's horrible. We can't do it. And to their credit, they turned it around quickly.
Cool. Yeah. So true life story, right? Put the right people in the job to get the job done quickly.
And more importantly, the sales folks and the accounting folks were excused from actually counting physical items, and they were very happy.
And by the way, Deborah, we are this quarter, operationally, we do 2 inventory audits a year. We do it second quarter and fourth quarter. So our goal is to do an inventory audit this quarter. And we're going to try to do a better job than we did the fourth quarter. Not that we did a bad job the fourth quarter. We actually counted everything. We figured out what it is. Then we did all the software as well. But we're going to do it again this time. We're going to try to count everything, figure out what it is, what it does, and who owns it. So make sure that you and Ruben and the team that's going to end up doing this gets together, because we do want to. I agree, right? We got to figure out where we stand from a financial perspective on the stuff that we have. We can kind of combine forces there and make sure we get both goals done with one project. Cool.
Well,
Awesome.
what was cool in our scenario too is we got it down to 1 day, so we did it on Friday. So all orders had to be in by Thursday night. So on Friday, our finance folks got to do whatever they wanted in regards to catching up their books and making sure that their daily tasks were up to speed. And our account managers, who normally were dealing all day with customers and dealing with orders, they had a full day to get all their books in order to make sure that all the orders were accounted for. It just gave them an admin day while all of us ops guys were out in the warehouse counting. So it was pretty cool.
So the other documented issue is servers becoming like snowflakes, and called configuration drift creeps into mission critical infrastructure. And Dave Malone had a really funny phrase. He said, he said, he says, I love it when we build these beautiful, wonderful snowflakes. They're just so wonderful. They're so beautiful. And they act just like snowflakes, because the minute you touch them, they melt and fall apart. And that kind of leads us into the fragile artifact phase, that when you start building snowflakes, it becomes very daunting and very time consuming and very labor intensive to manage. And that's why they're called snowflakes, and snowflakes immediately become fragile artifacts, or have the potential to become fragile artifacts. They're fragile artifacts in the waiting, right? Eventually there'll become a day where you won't be able to make change or manage those things, and you'll continually break them. Because you thought you were doing something smart back in the day, and you ended up creating havoc, right? And the story they tell through here, and I love this book in terms of narrative example, because everybody's been there. And maybe we can talk about some of the fragile artifacts and the kind of this drift we had here, right? They talk about the intern who installed DHCP on an Active Directory server, a DNS server, and they don't even know how the DHCP runs, and they try to turn it off once, and it broke all the middleware stuff. And I got you guys in dev. We still using Dropbox to push code for.
Fortunately, I think that is still the case with DC7.
Yeah.
They're stuck there.
Yeah, dev prime definition of a fragile artifact, right? Can't get away from it if you wanted to, and God help you if you try to change it, right?
You guys patch it, you have to go on there and make sure it's running again.
Yeah, and maybe you can talk maybe about what the state of the jump servers were when we first got here. What did the jump servers do?
Everything.
Yeah, everything, right?
Well, and so the whole patching thing is another. Isn't that the snowflake not only how fragile it is, but snowflakes are, there's no other snowflake.
There's nothing else like it.
They're unique in all the world. So when you patch, all the non-snowflakes, the ones that are just like every other one, no problem. You hit DC7, the special snowflake, there's a problem when we patch, because we have to restart the
job and
Dropbox
Dropbox thing, right?
So
right.
yeah, Snowflakes are, it's a good metaphor because of both fragility and it's unique.
The uniqueness, yes,
Yeah.
is so special. Can't touch it, right? And
No,
drop
but-
and jump servers. You had jump servers and
Critical
also
path, the only way to get to and from stuff.
right, yeah. So we got here the jump servers. These are the only way to get to customer environments. The only secure way to get to customer environments is you had to go through the jump servers. But were they the only jump servers? No, we had TechShare on it.
Yeah,
Ran some other things too. Did it run DNS?
possibly. We probably ran a lot of stuff off of it.
Yeah. How often did they break?
Monthly.
Yes, monthly.
Yeah. Towards the end, a little bit more frequently.
Right, right. Prime definition of a fragile artifact, right? It was this constant drift. Were those servers patched?
No,
Right.
never.
So now we're taking the secure, it's a secure vector to customer environments. Do we patch them? God, don't patch those things because
Don't touch them.
So
don't touch
it wasn't simple, it wasn't secure.
them. Was not simple, was not scary. Again, vision, where we're going. No, not where we've been. Now what do we have for jump servers? Something better?
They've all been redesigned for a more compliant way, but instead of jump servers, we're trying to utilize individual assets and
Yep.
direct access into the environments,
Yeah.
so that we aren't dependent on those items.
Yep, and that's kind of takes me to what do you do when you find your fragile artifact? So you go through your catch and release process, right? And the idea of the catch and release is to document and inventory all the managed assets, identifies, and then while you're doing that, not only are you doing the inventory about what it is, who owns it, what it does, and on page 46, it's basically got your data model for all the information you want to collect. But if you want to do catch and release and also find your fragile artifacts at the same time, you ask the critical question, identifies those that create the most unplanned and unscheduled work along the way, right? So as you go along, you basically say, hey, how do we manage this thing? And what's the likelihood if we make a change on the environment that it's going to go down? What happens when it goes down? And that's how you identify your fragile artifacts. And once you identify your fragile artifacts and you finish your catch and release project, what's the thing that you do with your fragile artifacts? When you have your list of fragile artifacts, what do? There's only one thing to do. You don't touch them, right? Even this talks about even someone going through and putting, this is the day before virtualization. You can tell this puts a little data where they put stickies on servers saying, do not touch, right? Do not touch, do not touch. Now, is that all you do to them? Just don't touch them? Hope they never break? It's a start. It's the right start, right? Yeah. What do you do to mitigate fragile artifacts? Exactly. You replace them, right? And it gets back to this idea of your mean time to repair goes way down if you remove fragile artifacts, and your mean time to repair goes way down when everything's the same because you're not trying to repair. All you do is you replace. Met with a guy who was asking me my opinion. He does consulting, and this company creates what he calls like mini data centers or boutique data centers, right? And they're lights out data centers. And so they're like 25,000 square feet data centers. They've automated everything inside the data center. So they have like control upon control, and they can basically manage, like they have, I don't know, like 50 data centers across the United States, all about like 25,000 square feet. And they manage it with a central remote knock, right? So they can kind of manage it all remotely. There's like 2 people that actually go, like, will in each city that can go to the data center and do stuff if need be. But aside from that, the 24/7 is all done remotely, right? So they've mastered the ITIL aspects of a data center, and they're thinking about now getting into managed services and how they might be able to do that and things of that nature. And I said, well, who's the customers of these boutique data centers? And I was expecting to be kind of local, you know, colo. It's a lights out facility, so you kind of let yourself in and let yourself into your keys and stuff like that. He says, well, they got customers like Microsoft and Google and Facebook. And I was like, wow. I was like, well, are they all in one data center? It's like, well, Microsoft will take down one and Google will take down another. And then it dawned on me that the reason that can be a lights out facility and why, and I thought to myself, I was like, well, if I was Facebook, I don't know if I would put my stuff into a unmanned data center, because if something happened, that data center goes down, there's nobody there to fix it, right? Someone's got to drive in. There's not a human body there. But then I realized that Google and Facebook have taken, we talked about how we just replaced servers, right?
Replace whole data centers.
Yeah, Google, Facebook, those type companies are at a point now where not repairing even if a data center goes down, they don't even care about the data center. They just basically spin up somewhere else, right? So the scaling of don't repair, replace can go all the way out to the data center level, which is pretty impressive. I thought it was pretty cool. So it's a philosophy, it's a mindset, and it has to go into the way you start building from day one. It's not something that you kind of wake up one day and say, you know what, we're gonna get out of the business of repairing and just get in the business of replacing. It has to start from day one with the design and your approach. And it helps if you make everything exactly the same. And what you have to do is you have to ferret out all the uniqueness in the environment, get rid of all the snowflakes in the environment. So you're just making, I don't know, the opposite of a snowflake. What would that be? Water. Ice cubes.
Ice cubes, that's good.
Cool. All right. Any other thoughts on moving along here? During inventory projects, we already touched upon this, right? Clear mandate delaying deployments of new builds and changes to existing builds until the inventory process is over. The catch and release and finding fragile steps must happen quickly, right? It's unrealistic to prohibit changes for too long. It stops the business. And in our case, would make customers very upset. Allow truly urgent and necessary changes to be made through the cab and the emergency cab. And again, when you're in that inventory phase, capturing those changes that kind of go into it. So that pretty much covers it. It's not a long, let's see, phase 2 started on page 45 and then on page really 48. So it's a very short chapter, 50 maybe. Any other comments, any other thoughts? Good stuff. Appreciate it. Holy cow, I only talked for like 30 minutes this time. This is a record.
So where do we stand overall as a company in identifying our fragile artifacts? I know that there's been some disjointed efforts across the board to do that, but I don't know that we've systematically said, okay, in each, however we want to divide it, whether we divide it by DC or we divide it by functional area, have we identified all the fragile artifacts across the board, and what's the remediation or replacement plan?
Yeah, I think we did a really good job last year in terms of replacing a lot of fragile artifacts that just existed in the environment, right? Did we ferret them all out? No. Did we probably make a few along the way between now and then? Yeah. Probably. But we're definitely light years where we were from this time last year, right?
Do we have any sort of plan to systematically, I should say, do this on a periodic basis?
Well, that's what this, this inventory, biannual inventory, right, would be, if we can get to that level. Right now it's not, right? In December when we did this, it was really count the servers and figure out what software we're buying. And this year I want to take another step forward, right? I want to say, or this quarter, let's count the servers, let's figure out what they do and who owns them. And we have that to a certain degree too in our infrastructure patching quarterly process, right? So we have the list of all of our physical assets, and we have identified owners for each of those physical assets, and we're identifying the patch level to make sure that they're all consistent across the board. Now that's just at the physical layer, right? We're not even close to getting to the VM layer yet.
We have an interesting problem in that we have both the physical and
virtual.
hundreds more in VM form that can only be seen through a software.
Yeah.
That was the easy thing in my previous job, was everything was physical, right? I mean, you physically counted it. It was pretty straightforward. Right?
Yeah. So it's this idea of also just iterative improvement. So I want to make sure that we can kind of take a step forward with the inventory process. We just don't do the same thing we did in December again here in what's going to be May. And see what we can do in terms of, okay, we've identified the asset, we identified the owner of the asset, we identify the value or the asset. Let's identify what that asset does, and then identify if it's a fragile artifact or not. And I would say from a physical perspective, we're pretty far along, right? We've taken a lot of stuff out of the environment. Like a good example was what was that? Yeah, Chicago.
HP Matrix.
HP Matrix, right? There was a fragile artifact, and now that's removed from the environment.
Will was really nervous about that.
Yeah, and that was removed from
so
the
was
environment.
I, but I tried not to let it show.
Yeah. A really good goal for us would be is the next time we do this audit in December is, can we get to the VM level, right? And we're trying to populate the VMs with CMDB and Landsweeper, and please, by December, we should have land sweeper populated, but now it might be a case of then, okay, going into land sweeper and getting to the same level we are with the physical equipment.
So then we get more granular, because then we can start tracking outages and tickets specifically to items in the CMDB, and we can see if there's repeat offenders, which kind of points to a fragile artifact.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and then we've come a long way. I mean, now we have all the ESXi hosts at the same patch level, right?
Yes.
Okay. The brocade switches are at the same patch level. I mean, we're even getting down to the NIC cards being at the same driver and patch level, right? So we could not have said that last year, right? So we've come a long way in terms of getting a standard config. It's going to be a little bit tougher on the customer basis, right? We have a handful of customers that basically say they want to opt out of patching, and frankly, they want to opt out of patching because they've created their own fragile artifacts. One of the reasons why you opt out of patching isn't because you think the patch is going to break your environment. It's just because your environment is going to break if you change it. The patch didn't break it. You set it up so it can't be touched. And so what we would need to do is, once we get kind of one of them, probably a good goal to have before the end of the year, is to work with the customers that have opted out of the patching and identify why they've opted out of patching and see if we can replace their own fragile artifacts. And that would be an interesting kind of project to undertake. But before we get there, we should probably just get the whole gamut of VMs into the CMDB and establish, you know, a catch and release through the VM environment. The one thing that we don't have, and this might be a good goal for this go around, is identifying our own internal VMs, right? So we understand what all the physical servers do and who owns them, but we've got a lot of internal VMs, that we probably don't know what they need to do. So it might be one of these things that we should probably get with Ruben and say, hey, look, one of the things that we want to do this inventory thing is we just don't want to capture physicals. We don't want to just capture software. We got to capture all of internal VMs and figure out who owns the internal VMs and what their function is. And basically, that would be an easy freeze for us to do, is say no more internal VMs for 2 weeks while we go through this process. Run all through the pack, run all through change management.
We're paying for those, right? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
On a daily, hourly basis?
Yeah, you know, pay the VMware, you know, your 10 points per gig of used RAM for while they're on. It's not like we ever shut them off, right? And Microsoft, same deal. So yeah, that might be something, that might be a good goal to mature the inventory process for this year, is capture internal VMs.
Quite a few less here.
That'll be the idea.
So we've already started that process. You've identified internal VMs that won't come over. So
yeah, we need to run it through another
iteration
check before we actually don't bring it forward.
Cool. All right. Any other questions? Good question. Good stuff. All right, I'm going to enjoy the rest of my value beer here. So feel free to help yourself. We'll come back. Next week, I am going to be in lovely Detroit, Michigan again. So we will pick up again in 2 weeks.
What you doing in Detroit?
So I'm going to go visit a prospect.
I'm from Detroit.
You're from Detroit. All right, I'll save all the Detroit jokes for 2 weeks from now. The next one, obviously, phase 3. All right.
What a customer.